Hello, Replit community, and welcome to the first Replit 101 of the new year. Yes, it's 2023. I almost misspoke there, but it is 2023, and we are going to get straight into some Replit 101 because for the first time ever in the last 2 weeks, we haven't done a million different launches of different products, which is crazy because it means I can get started on Replit 101 straight away without 10 minutes of demo today. So that's pretty cool. See, the holidays do come in useful for something. So hello to everyone in the chat. Please do remember to pop your questions in if you'd like them answered. And as we go, I do have our good friend ChatGPT available to us today. If you'd like to use it or get involved in some fixes that maybe I'm not quite up to the task for, or the chat's not up to the task for, but we've already seen some JavaScript, some Java from me, and a mention of Lua. So, you know, we've got the expertise, guys. We can fix these problems. But I want to start tonight. I'll pop this up because there's a massive amount of bug reports on Ask, and thank you so much everyone for getting in there and engaging in the Ask forum for bug reporting. The support team are finding that brilliant for having two-way conversations and seeing those bugs come together. The more that are reported, the more that we'll fix. So it's always a good job to get. Oh, Ethan, are you trying to use assembly? Fantastic. I always found assembly to be a bit of a head scratcher. At university, that was the one module that I really struggled with. And I think it's because it's having to think in that really linear, old school computing fashion that is quite difficult when you're used to just going, let's print something on the screen. And instead you have to move bits of memory around and put it up there. But yeah, hopefully you'll find some help in there. Fantastic. Right, so let's get the screen up and let's get on to solving some problems today. But I want to start with this because this is one of the most wholesome conversations and support that I've seen on the Discord. And, you know, I just wanted to shout this out really because, you know, it's just a post saying I'm struggling with day 18. And Raven jumps in straight away and going, yeah, cool. I'll help. I'll do anything I can. And the back and forth here is just wonderful. And do you know what? That's why we have the Discord. That's why we have the Ask forums, not just for reporting bugs, but it's for helping people out with their coding problems. And the point of this live stream is to show those coding problems and try and talk about them and how we might fix them. But I want to shout that out as one of the most wholesome back and forths that I've seen on the Discord recently. And yeah, more of that, please, guys. More of that. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Tech Panda. The amount of tabs does freak people out a little bit. But all I do is before Replit 101, I open every Ask coding question and every Discord coding question for the last 2 weeks. And I go through them and put them in some sort of order of how I'd like to talk about them. But that does mean lots of tabs. So let's hope that the amount of tabs isn't too scary. I will just say this, though. There's a lot of tabs there, but I used to teach in a high school. And when the principal would come to talk to us, you know, on a training day or something and want to present something to us, there were more tabs than that. It was a little scary. And they were all being used for something. Right, let's get down to the first question today then. Oh, what a wonderful. Oh, Ethan, I love that. You want it? That'd be great. We'll have a chat about that afterwards. But yeah, that would be great. Some way of linking to them. So this is the first one I wanted to have a look at today because this palindrome identifier program on day 59 of 100 days of code had a few people scratching their heads because the example that was given in the sort of description of the lesson was this particular example. A plan, a canal, Panama. It's a palindrome, but only if you remove the spaces. And so the first question, by the way, Rocco, love the fact you're asking questions here, but let's remember that the nice thing about Discourse is that we can post code snippets. I think there's just a button for that. Does somebody want to remind me? I'm sure I can go down and post and have a look in a moment. No, this one's been locked probably. But we can post code snippets in Ask, and it's much, much easier to see that because one of the key things about Python is that the indentation matters. The indentation is really important for the structure of the code. But nicely, QWERTY went in and solved the problem. Now, a question came up a little bit later, which is what's the point of strip? So let's just go through it a little bit. So we've got the question coming out. The main issue with it is that what it was doing was it was checking bases. It was checking the string wholesale from each direction, which is great. And it works well. And in all my examples, I give them single words. But when you try and take in a big chunk like that with spaces in it, you need to get rid of those spaces. And what QWERTY did, quite rightly, was use the replace function. Now, what replace does is it allows you to search for a certain character, and well, actually, I think it's an entire string, and replace it with another. So if you search for space and you replace it with nothing, it removes the spaces from the string, which is perfect because then we can examine it properly. The question then was, well, what's the point of the strip function? Well, strip function is actually much more useful than you think it is, because the strip function's job is to take white space from the front and the back of the string. And a lot of people go, well, why doesn't it just remove every single space then? Well, the point of the strip function is different. We don't always want to remove every single space. In fact, in most text entry, the spaces are important. Think about a text field on a website that said, give me your name. Some people, and these people, when I taught high school, were usually found out within the first couple of weeks, like to put spaces at the start or the end of their text. It looks prettier. And these people are a nightmare for processing data in a computer, because you'll have people that put one space in, you'll have people that learn to type sort of pre-1980 that do two spaces. Because they learned to type on typewriters, but that was a bit nicer. And strip is designed to take those spaces that people put in just to make things look pretty and get rid of them. So we've just got the pure text with the expected spaces in the middle. So that's what the strip function does, and that's the point of it, really. And I just want to call out Rocco and QWERTY here in Ask for having a really good back and forth and talking a lot about what that is. This is the sort of interaction we like seeing on Ask. And this is a sort of interaction that I love seeing, because it's people helping each other out and clarifying these things. Ethan is going to send us a link on how to share code. We'll see a lot of these examples today where the things we're looking at on Ask are formatted poorly when the person asks a question. And you know what? It's understandable, completely understandable, because a lot of these people are new to coding. A lot of these people are new to learning about it and don't think that coding is a very specific thing. Oh, Ethan's going to post it on Ask. Sorry. Oh, no, sorry. Let's have a look. I've got some, sorry, a misunderstanding. I'm reading half. Over the past month, the average time to the first reply has been less than half an hour. And Ethan, big pat on the back for that, because you and the rest of the Ask team are doing a fantastic job with that. We're looking at the stats behind the scenes, and honestly, if you want interaction quickly from people that are willing to help, Ask is the place to go. It's not just for reporting your numerous bugs and problems there. It's also for that great community that's helping each other. And there's a lot of examples of that. In fact, when we first started Replit 101, one of the things that I was doing was picking the questions on Ask that didn't have the answers. That's almost impossible for me to do now because the team are doing so well on there. I've got a good one from Pantherman, which I'll pick up in a second. But what I wanted to do first of all is look at seeing if ChatGPT could generate a palindrome generator. So can you give, not a generator, a checker, can you give me an example in Python of a program that can check if a string is a palindrome? Ignore spaces. Well, I'll say ignore white space, actually. White space, by the way, is the concept of not just spaces, but tabs and any chunk of space that will be basically invisible. So let's see for anything today. It's getting a bit excitable with ChatGPT. It's getting a personality. I'm not sure I like it very much. I think I preferred it better when it just went blop and pushed stuff out to us. Let me zoom out a little bit on that as well, because it's a bit huge for us to see examples of code. Oh, now interestingly, it picks the one I always pick, race car. And let's have a look. Okay, this is a very, very nerdy way of doing it. I like this a lot. I like that a lot. Yeah, so it's returning the string is equal to the, the string backwards, which that's a really neat way of doing it. You know, I've been teaching things like recursion and subroutines for 20 years. And it's always nice to be surprised when the reason I like teaching young people is because they come up with an innovative solution. ChatGPT just gave me an example of like a really clever version of the palindrome generator. Probably wouldn't have worked to explore the concepts I wanted to, but that's really nice. And it's just an example that, you can build these things in multiple ways. Oh, what's the issue? What's the issue? Oh, oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry, this is my this is from my personal account. It's an avatar I had made when I first started teaching. And believe it or not, like don't tell anybody, but I did used to have hair on my head, a decent bit of it. So yeah, I need to update that avatar. I think just maybe if anybody wants to take a screenshot of it and just paint it bald, you're more than welcome to. That would be fantastic. Right, I wanted to bring up a question now from Pantherman, who asked live, what jobs would you be able to get by learning Python? I think this really depends on where your question's coming from, whether what you mean is learning Python as an extra language or whether you mean learning Python programming generally. Now, in all these cases, Python is a great language to learn and it's very, very powerful. And if you were to study, say, the 100 days of code, we get you up to a point where you can build Flask websites where you can scrape the internet and do some sort of basic automation. Now, those sort of skills work very well in pretty much any job that uses any kind of data. Python is a big benefit for. And of course, I'll tell this story that I've told numerous times before, but back in the early aughts when I was working at a small job at university, I managed to use Java at the time to automate the job I was paid for down to a single button click. Where it was the person before me would spend, sort of like 10, 12 hours a week doing the same job. And it was a very simple data gathering job. It was pulling information from a spreadsheet and formatting it in a nice way in a word processing program. So it could be printed out and distributed on a weekly basis. So I would be paid 12 hours work for clicking a button. Now, don't get me wrong, I put a lot of effort into that in building the program in the first place, but that is some of the power that you can get. You're absolutely right, Ethan. Work smarter, harder. The problem is that a lot of people don't notice the appeal of that and why that's a powerful thing. So a lot of people learn Python and automation, and in fact, there's that one course. Is it Automate the Boring Stuff, I think, which the dude gives out free at the beginning of every month as well. If you go on Reddit and get the code, certainly. But that takes you through a lot of that stuff. So if you're in a sort of a reasonably straightforward office type job, you can probably find that you can automate a bunch of that. In terms of specific programming jobs, you're talking about working as a developer, working as a web designer, or things like that comes in really useful for. But I'd say learning Python is the start of that process. It is becoming then proficient in one of the applications of it that'll get you a job. For instance, if you're into web development, then going further down that road would get you jobs in that industry. If you're interested in data science, then exploring some of the particular Python libraries like NumPy and Pandas and things like that would do you a good job to be able to get a job in those industries. If you're interested in sort of larger scale development work, you probably want to look at other programming languages that are more applicable to making desktop software, because whilst Python does that, it's still not quite the ideal for those sort of situations. PiScript is getting bigger, isn't it? Is it PiScript? Because yeah, you questioned it, Ethan. Now I'm questioning it as well. If anyone does remember what that one's called, please pop it in the chat so we can get 100% that thing. Unless actually, we'll ask ChatGPT. Is there a Python library called PiScript, and is it for data science? Let's have a look. What's easy to say that it is? What is it? What am I going crazy here, or is ChatGPT telling me that? Oh, there's no standard Python library. Sometimes ChatGPT just fails, but QWERTY, thank you very much. It's PiScript. Yeah, cool. Thank you. That's a cool one as well. But what you've got to remember is that learning a programming language is the start, and then learning skills in a certain sector of programming is the best way to get into a job. Things like cybersecurity require understanding of different things and those sort of jobs. But I'll come back to this. There's a fundamental difference between the idea of learning to program for its own sake and learning to program to be a software developer. And they tend to academically fall into the camps of computer science and software engineering. But I'm very much the sort of person that I studied computer science in university. I think at my heart, I'm a software engineer because I just like to get things working, and that means your code is a little bit dirtier, and it just sort of works. PiScript's running Python in your browser. Oh, so is that thing that came out? Was it last year? And it replaces JavaScript for running code directly in there? Well, that rings a bell. So, yeah. Again, I'm not going to put my opinions on JavaScript on you at the moment, but from a teaching point of view, JavaScript's a difficult language to teach with because of the robust ways that web browsers handle errors and aren't as fussy about them as, say, Python would be. Okay, let's hit the next question today. Okay, this is a nice one. If I can find it, there we go. Sorry, I want to bring this one up because this was a question that popped up about some of the 100 days stuff. And it was, why in the auto-saving process do we use W instead of an A+? Okay, so let's have a look at what we're talking about here. Let me bring up a Python REPL. There isn't a standard library or anything like this. This is something I came up with when I was teaching, to teach the ability to just dump the contents of a list in 3 lines. It was something I did very, very quickly, but something that was very effective for years in a row. So if I make a variable like my list, and we'll do just a while loop. Beautiful. Thank you, Ghostwriter, even though I tapped the wrong key. So we'll have an infinite loop, and we're going to, let's have a look. That's all right. That's all right. It's not bad. This Ghostwriter decided I'm making a list program, but that'll be all right because it'll append it for us each time. What I'm going to do is, I've got my indent. The end of the end, I'm going to do the autosave code. So autosave code works like this. We open a text file. Can't remember to give Ghostwriter a chance to actually do it. And we just do, there we are, thank you. We f.write the string of list and we close it. Now, I'm going to run this just to show you what's happening. So all the array is doing is adding numbers to us. I'm going to bring up my list.txt at the bottom of the screen so you can see what's going on. As I add the numbers in, it looks like it's appending, but what's actually happening is every loop, it's completely deleting the file and writing the entire list back into the file. It's designed to be the dirtiest, quickest way to get the complete dump of the list stored. Now, the question was in the Ask Forum, why don't we use something like A+? Well, let's try it. So A+, let's add another number. What's wrong here? What's happening? What's happening there that's wrong? It doesn't look right. It looks like a multi-dimensional array or a list of lists now. And actually, the problem with append is it adds it to the bottom of the text file. It is not aware of the contents of the text file. If you want to use the append command, A+, as a mode of opening a text file, what you need to do is read that text file in and write your own logic to deal with it. Now, when I was teaching in high school, one of the things that my students had to do was they do a 20-hour controlled assessment where they weren't allowed to use the internet or any of their previous notes or even talk to anybody. So when they had to, very often, save the contents of an array to a file and load it back up later and be able to append and remove from it, this was a very easy way of teaching it and getting people to remember it without access to the internet. Now, I'm sure it's not just me that thinks that teaching somebody to code and then testing them without access to the internet is a bit unfair. It's a bit like going to somebody, oh, we've got an art exam today. You do it with the lights off. Doesn't really seem to be a sensible use, but you know, that's just the way exam boards in the UK work. But back with W now, you can see that it's actually deleting the contents each time. And what it's actually pushing into there is the complete changed array. With auto load as well, what that does is it loads the contents of the list back into memory and works absolute wonders. It is just a really down dirty, quick trick to get auto-saving and auto-loading working. And it sort of resembles the way that you do it in a video game. So it's quite easy for most people to remember the idea. It's just dumping everything in and loading it back up later. And actually helped my students easily save stuff. Now, in 100 Days of Code, of course, we then go on afterwards to actually deal with useful kinds of saving, you know, using databases and actually being able to save behind the scenes without worrying about anything. So I've tried to answer that in the comment, but the main, look, you could use A+ if you want to, but you have to manually organize the list and you then have to manually read it in, format it, delete things. There's a lot more code to write if you do that than if you use autosave and autoload. And in fact, a database, a persistent database like Replit DB is much better for that anyway. I just want to say thank you, Said. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you get there, get all the way to day 100. Don't forget, you have my permission to avoid the Kinter lessons, and that's in the written content and that's in the video as well. There's only about 4 of them, but you have my permission to avoid those. Now, Ethan's saying, interestingly, in the US, you have a similar problem to make this. Yeah, it is. I always say the important thing about programming is it's problem solving. It is learning enough skills that you can start to put things together in interesting ways. It's a bit, you know, I try to compare it to people that don't know as much about programming as we do. I try to compare it to things like Lego or you know, building. If you learn to build a wall and you learn a bit of plumbing, you can put those skills together and build a house. That might not be a good house, but you probably could put those skills together. There's an interesting comment as well. AIs like ChatGPT, Ghostwriter, Copilot make the program if you tell it the logical. Yeah, you do, and I think having an understanding of programming makes working with AI programming assistants easier, because what they're very good at is that repetitive code that you have to write that you make simple mistakes in, and you are basically driving it to connect those chunks together. I think that's really important. Okay, we've got a question from Rin here. Does Replit support olds on Python? Now, I believe so, because it's all Nix behind the scenes. So let's have a quick look to see packages, Nix modules. I can never remember what they are. If you have a look in NixOS at what the Python versions we've got are, well, we've got Python 2, but you can see here, Python, I think Python 3.9 is the most current, 3.1 maybe? I can't keep up anyway. No, it must be more than 3.9 because 3.9 brought in the switch case, didn't it? So assuming we're here, 3.11.1, then we've got access to all these older versions. So what you need to do, Ren, is that you need to go and edit your replit.nix file. I'll show you what that is in a second, but we'll turn it to Python, say, I don't know, Python 3.7 to show that we can go back if we want to. So the first thing that we do here is we click the kebab menu, the 3 dots, and we click Show Hidden Files, and that will give us access to 2 important configuration files, replit and replit.nix. Now, replit.nix is the packages to pull in. And in this case, it's Python 3.8 full. So let's try Python 3.7. Shouldn't have any problem with running that because it should be the same code. Yeah, and it's working. And now it's running Python 3.7. In fact, how far can we go? Can we go to Python 3.4 maybe? Let's have a look. We go, so we can go down quite far by just adjusting that. The place to go, of course, is Nix packages and have a look at what's there. I could bring in Python 2 if I wanted to, but no. I know there's lots of Python 2 code on the internet, but the pain we had for so many years when Python 2 wasn't deprecated, honestly, with people finding example code, pasting it in and going, why is print not working? Well, you've missed out your brackets, your parenthesis was a common thing that we worried about. So yes, Rin, to answer your question, you can pull all those things in. You just need to go into that replit.nix file, adjust the numbers in there, and you can get the version you want. I imagine that we also have some templates in the community for different versions of Python. So if I go create and I just put Python in here, it'll find not only our Replit templates, but also ones from other people. Well, I know we've got a 3.10, but we've got a bunch of other stuff as well, included with extra parts. Yeah, I'm sure there are, if you have a look, templates for older versions as well, if you don't want to set them up yourself. But it's always good to keep it up to date if you can. Okay, so ongoing discussion about AI. 100% they can make programs very well, but you still need to make sure it's safe and does not have bugs. This is about the AI programming. Ethan, you're 100% right there. One of the things that I think is, well, not funny so much, but like entertaining, is that very new programmers often think that they can search for something, get code, copy and paste it, and it'll work perfectly. And it's only with experience that they start realizing that no one solution that already exists is going to work for your use case. And actually, you have to customize. And one of the ways that I always used to pick students up on this was one of the, like in Replit, in Replit 100 Days of Code, we do this as well. One of the first activities we really have that's really in depth is building a rock, paper, scissors game. And this, of course, if you Google rock, paper, scissors, Python, you'll find hundreds of implementations. And somebody would always do it. Somebody would always get it. And I would always make sure that my criteria were very specific. I wanted, a lowercase r, maybe a capital P. Suddenly they'd have, code that would work with any combination of anything using lists and stuff. And it was really nice to be able to point that out to people. But in the same way, then, using something like AI-generated code, most naive programmers will think they can just type in, Pac-Man game, boom, copy-paste the code, and it's working. Well, we saw last time we did Replit 101, if you ask for a game, it's going to expect to see some resources, and ChatGPT can give you the code. But what it doesn't do is give you the sprites and the sound effects and the animations and all that sort of stuff, unless we ask it to encode them directly in the code. But again, these are more advanced things. So yeah, I think that's really good. So Ethan says, that's what I've done with bounties. I'd ask an AI to go debug, make sure it's safe. Oh, that's an interesting use case. So Ethan, I wonder if you can elaborate on that for us, Ethan, a little bit. Are you saying you're going into it and you're saying, right, take a look at this code. What bugs can you find? Are you asking it to define test cases or stuff like that? Because I think that's a fascinating use case that I haven't really delved into that much. I've done a bit of it, but using something like ChatGPT, or certainly I've used Ghostwriter to say define test cases for me on this. I'm not very good at doing unit testing myself because I've never really done the extensive level of coding in a team where unit testing would be important. I've always been sort of a one-man shop, really. And yeah, I suppose if you could elaborate for us, you think that'd be brilliant. Okay, Fuchsia's got a question here. I was using ChatGPT to help me sort out how to do animations with Matlab. Why can I never say that? Matplotlib. There we go. I think it's because part of my brain is trying to say Matlab every time. I don't know if Matlab is still a thing. Back in the day, Matlab was a maths-based programming language, which is really pretty cool. It may not be a thing anymore, but there we go. Matplotlib. It was helpful. Once I had an array of frames, I set to save them off, introduced me to Pickle. Well, that's really nice. I'm finding that as well. I wonder how much I can spoil future features. Let's just imagine that maybe and I wouldn't say any more about it, but let's just assume that somebody was working on a Flask website, and suddenly I thought, do you know what? I've never thought about caching this. I should really be caching this site. And maybe I asked could it do this? Could it do cache in this way? Could it work better in that? And actually, I found that, those back and forth questions, I learned a massive amount about what I could do with Flask, aside from what I already knew, just by having a stray thought and putting it into our AI chat buddies. And yeah, future, I think that's the same thing to me. There were a bunch of things that introduced me to whilst I was using it, whilst I was working on this Flask site, just because I had a stray thought. I was like, just like you were asking how to do animation. I was like, I've never done caching. I wonder if caching is built into this. I don't need to build the entire thing myself. And I find it a lot nicer than just Googling, because you Google it and you get your dry articles, you get your deep Stack Overflow stuff, and you've got to try and spend that time to put it together. And what ChatGPT does is it goes, yeah, I'll explain it to you and I'll give you an example. And if you want more information, you can ask for more information on a specific thing. Yeah, I think it's amazing for learning. And a lot of schools have blocked ChatGPT, and I think that's a massive shame. Not because I want everyone going and cheating on essays, because let's be honest, that's what the vast majority of people are probably going to be using it for at this point, but because there's a lot of use. The same that I would rather teach somebody how to program with access to the internet. Today, I'd want to teach somebody to program with access to Ghostwriter, with access to ChatGPT, because I think the learning possibilities are greater when you're sat there and you're learning and you're in the flow and you've got a question and you can ask AI to give you a bunch of details about it or generate code for you on the spot. There's more learning opportunities there, and I think schools that are blocking things are probably in the wrong place. So Ethan's clarified for us. Let's have a look. Some bounties I know will take a lot of time for me to do it myself, but I would go and ask how to write the program. Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, I got you the wrong way around. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, so you'd say, write the program. Cool. Now I'm going to go through it and check that it does the cases, debug it, and then use your knowledge then to try and find common errors and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic way of doing it. No, Ghostwriter is all in-house, as far as I'm aware. Big project, and they are rightly very proud of it, and it's why it works slightly differently. So Fisher's gone back and said, schools blocking duties like schools banning calculators. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? Because I've never encountered. I suppose when I went through the school system, we had calculator and non-calculator exams. So they were exams you couldn't take a calculator into, so you had to learn mental arithmetic for those sort of things. But I don't know if anybody else gets the same thing. My brain actually rebels when I try and do long chains of simple mathematics. I just feel myself going, get a calculator, load 12 up, 1970. So a little before me, but yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? It's like this technological divide happens a lot. Like the invention of a calculator, and your teacher says you'll never have a calculator in your pocket, and they invent a pocket calculator, and then they say, well, you won't have it with you all the time, and then you've got your mobile phone. And this is the thing that I think fundamentally is probably going to be the argument. It's like teachers saying, Chat GPT, you're not going to have that with you all the time. Well, I've got a data connection, I've got my phone, I've pretty much got it already. So what's the issue? That's fascinating. Elementary school calculators were banned. Not learning basic mathematics, like, you know, it's get the bicycles away from them. Well, you're there to run. No one's going to grab a bicycle and go in the track, are they? Let's have a look. Oh God! Oh, that's terrible. Long division by rote. Oh, I feel like you've lived through some like institutional abuse there. Forced to do that. That's well. You know, I'm glad we've got our calculators and our computers today. Ethan's popped in and said, when we're younger, we can't use calculators, but we're always allowed to use one. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point there. I didn't think we'd be taking this dive tonight, to be honest. But Hydrogen says, I think calculators should be banned in elementary schools. Now, my memory is a bit hazy in this, and you know, yeah, I think that's fair, since you need the skill to do simple arithmetic in your head. And then Fuchsia's coming back, and I think Fuchsia, you're 100% where my thinking is on this as well. It's the concepts are more important than the mechanics, and I'm 100% with you here. I this is the way I believe as well, because you know, I did computer science at university. I had to do maths up to A level, and then I had to do maths as part of computer science as well, because it's quite a mathsy subject. And yeah, at a certain point, you're like, well, I can't do these equations in my head, so I just need to know. I need to understand the concepts rather than doing the basic arithmetic. But also, is there a benefit to, like, you know, learning your multiplication tables and stuff like that? Interesting debate. Now, in the UK, we've had an announcement today to say that the Prime Minister wants everyone to take mathematics up to 18. I wonder how that's going to go down. Yeah, cool. I did see a little comment here from Winston. Hello. Yes, I'm glad I'm somebody's favorite bald teacher on the internet. There are dozens of us. Here's a good question from Casson. Swift UI, I do not think that we have an implementation of Swift UI, but I know we have a Swift template. I'll bring it up. There we go. We do have a Swift template, because I was trying to help a teacher deeping in there, working in. Now, Swift UI is the way that they design user interfaces in Swift. I believe that the implementation of that is very much tied to Apple hardware at the moment. I'm not 100%, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's very CPU intensive. Building in Swift is still very new and fresh. And although it is, I suppose Swift is open source, I'm going to open source it. The open sourcing is iterated on Apple hardware. So I do not think that we support Swift UI yet. In fact, let's have a look in Nix and see what we've got with Swift here. Let's see what packages, because again, if there's a package in Nix, then we should be able to have it ourselves. There's a bunch of them, but let's just look for Swift UI. Oh, well, there's an Emacs package, but I imagine that's not what we're looking for. I'm going to assume that we don't. Now, Hydrogen's asked this, and you made me question myself. My understanding was Swift is open sourced, but it is developed by Apple. I remember listening to a podcast interview with the lead on Swift, a big open source proponent, and how useful it is. And open source is what tends to happen is everything goes quiet for a couple of months, and then just drop loads of content at the same time, because it was tied to hardware release. Let's ask ChatGPT, is Swift open source? Oh yeah, it is an open source programming language. There we go. Released in December 2015. Well, you do learn something every day, don't you? If Swift wasn't an open source programming language, for us to have an implementation of it, but also I think it would be very difficult for it to become a entrenched language if it's not open source, because again, I'm partially remembering an old podcast interview here, but my understanding is that Swift is designed to be able to build everything from a compiler to really complex web software. It's designed to be small scale and big scale, abstract where necessary, or go down to the nitty gritty where necessary. I've done probably about its development in my entire career, so I can't claim to be an expert, but it is, it's one of those things that interests me. So I have, read a little bit about it. If anybody in the chat is a Swift expert and would like to talk to us about it, please do. It'd be fantastic. But sorry, Castle, I don't think we have Swift UI, but we do have Swift. We do have a Swift template that you can use and works pretty well. As I said, I helped the teacher debug some issues they're having with testing some Swift and compiling it for a course they were running. Fuchsia, I pull yours up here. I've noticed under product with addition or differential equations. Okay. I remember as one of the things that my students used to have to do in their last year of high school was a large scale programming project. I remember one of my students once built a differential equation solver as a aid for learning. I'm not sure it was necessarily used that way by his friends, but I remember it being a very complicated piece of software. I remember there being a lot to it. And of course, he didn't use, like import a built-in library to do it or anything like that. So yeah, cool. Right, let's have a look at another question. We've got about 15 minutes and we've done barely any of the questions that we wanted to look at tonight. So let's have a look at the next one. Okay, I want to look at this one because we get these questions a lot, and we get these issues a lot with people trying to install specific libraries, particularly in Python, and doing it the old-fashioned way is not the way to say it, but certainly the classic way. Pip install is great, and you can use it through Replit, but we have our own package manager, and the vast majority of packages are there to be installed and have been tweaked to work properly and quickly behind the scenes. So if we start a new Python REPL, the package manager, how easy it is to install something like this. Now, the user, who's Jedi Stuff 2, is having some trouble installing Fauna DB. And you can see Umar really trying to help, talking about how to do it, how to try and change things behind the scenes. But actually, I think the solution is much more simple than that. It's use the package manager. The package manager is here. I think we have the package manager installed for most languages, but the package manager is tweaked to allow better install. I'll search for Fauna DB. I'll click the plus on there. And remember, that's not just installing Fauna DB, it's also installing all its dependencies as well. Excuse me a second. Cough buttons, definitely for the win. But of course, if you want that to speed up, you can always turn on some boosts, and that'll run a bit quicker. That's what I'd like. Pop a boost on. I'll use the ridiculous 32x one, which is reasonably new or coming soon, and my packages will install really, really quick. But you can see there, it's all installed, it's ready to go. I can now start calling it and using it, and 9 times out of 10, that's much more easier and more efficient than using pip install, which is nice, I think. Honestly, the package manager is overlooked. I remember when I first started at Replit, I wanted to go like proper hardcore, and when I was building templates, I was starting with a blank REPL every time. And start with a blank REPL if you've not done it. The point is you can configure the Nick stuff exactly as you want from the start. You've got complete control over it. It's just got the cow say, so it just shows that it works. The problem with that is that when you start manually trying to install stuff, you break stuff. Dependencies don't work properly. Pip install doesn't work great all the time. So I was told by one of our support engineers, just use the package manager. We've tweaked it, we've made it better. So after doing that and using, like a basic Python or a basic Java template and going from there, I've had much more success with doing more complicated things on Replit. Carson said an OS in Replit. I mean, theoretically, you can. Yeah, OSs of some kind are written in something like C. So yeah, you probably could. There would be a massive overhead though, because if you imagine each REPL is its own virtual machine, and then you're running a machine within a virtual machine, there's diminishing returns there. So yes, you could, but it wouldn't be the fastest, most nippiest, most cool, flashy operating system. But yeah, you probably could. And I think, Ethan, I don't know if you were making a joke or you were actually trying to use assembly language, but that's exactly where you would write an operating system. He says Replit supports APL. Well, Replit supports CPL. I don't know, but do you know what? Let's have a look at the Nix packages. So CPL, let's just pop that in and see what we get. There's CPL for Haskell. Let's have a look. If we just look for Centurion. And Fuchsia, if I've already found what you're looking for, let me know. And nothing for Centurion. There are some stuff for CPL. Fuchsia, you're going to know a lot more than me. You know a lot more than me about what that specific language is. Have a look at this. Go to the Nix package manager. Just have a look, see if you can find anything even remotely close to what you do. If it's supported as a Nix package, you can create a REPL that supports it quite quickly. You're saying nope, so I'm assuming that it's not there. Go to the Ask forum and pop it in as a feature request. If it's something reasonably straightforward, I'm sure that we'll be able to get to it reasonably quickly. But that's what those Ask forums are for. So Ethan was making a joke. Yeah, he was making a joke. The lowest language I know is there's again, so I keep doing stories about my teaching career at the moment, but like when we talk about things like this is the majority of the exposure. One of the things we had to teach was Little Man Computer, and Little Man Computer is like a simplified assembly language for teaching. And it's fine, and it explains the concepts well, and most people absolutely hate it because it is mind-numbing. People going in one language. Some people love it because it, they're there with it, the way their brain works. But I always had a massive frustration because at GCSE, which is like 14, 15, 16, our exam board didn't have any kind of jump instructions that worked on conditions. So you could only create an infinite looping program, or you could create a program that was too simple for anything. So yes. TechPanda's tinkered with assembly before. I think, you know what, TechPanda, I think it takes a certain kind of person to really level programming. It's very difficult to get your head into that space where you're moving individual bits about, you're swapping the memory yourself, stuff like that, when you're just so used to going, print something, save it as a variable, loop this 1,000 times. That's why I found it so hard anyway, because my brain actively was rebelling on me. Sorry, Fuchsia telling us a little bit about Centurion. Centurion was a company, they created their own language, it's very closely tied to their hardware. Okay. Yeah, if it's like a very esoteric thing, the chance of there being a Nix package is probably low. But yeah, there's certainly a way to write an emulator or port it there. If we could find if you link me to the emulator, we could certainly have a look at what language that's written in, or maybe it's a compiled emulator. We could have a look at decompiling it. Maybe we could stick it into ChatGPT and see if it can decompile stuff. It's done some good work with that in the past. I've seen a few videos on that. Ethan saying, when I was learning JavaScript, I said to myself, making a basic version of Minecraft can't be that hard. I think that's the scary thing about Mojang, isn't it? Is that you look at it and you go, this can't be that difficult. And back in the old days, certainly you could inspect all the Java code. That was horrific. Okay, we've got a question from Gaston again. There's tons of bots in community. Are they breaking the Replit terms of service? Some of them are breaking Replit terms of service. One of the key things that we have in the Replit terms of service that you always got to watch out for are things like the key thing that we have is that part of using Replit is that if you write software that interacts with another service, you shouldn't break their terms of service as well. So if something like Kahoot specifically says in the terms of service, no bots, then yeah, it would also be terms of service because it's breaking Kahoot's terms of service. If you see anything and you think you need to report it, please do report it, because obviously we don't want too much dodgy stuff cluttering up the REPLs on community when you're searching for things. But also it's also worth having a think about the use of it. If it's built and it's obviously for a malicious use, then I think it's worth reporting that, because platform. Sorry, Ethan, before I bring up features, Ethan was corrected in Java. Yeah, sorry, that's what I was talking about there as well. So there are some pretty well-known Steam games that introduce assembly language without using these words. Yeah, and there's a really interesting Steam game called Human Resource Machine. In fact, I think you can get it for consoles. I'm sure you can get it for the Switch. You can definitely get it for the iPad. It's a game that I used to use to teach the concepts, the fundamental concepts of assembly language to people. I think you're talking a little bit more about like proper. Well, that was the most English thing I've ever said. Proper assembly language. But if you want to have a look at it, Human Resource Machine is amazing. There's actually a free version that they released for code.org's Hour of Code, and it's the entire game, but it just doesn't allow you to save, which you can do it in one sitting. It is a pretty nice game. Worth a go if you're interested in assembly language, but you don't actually want to go and build something that just adds two numbers together, because it's the same concepts but done in a more gamified way. Steve said he tried the 6502 assembly language just once or two. After he recovered from his brain exploding, he moved on to easier things. Steve, I hope that recovery was quick. Because I just had to look at x86 while I was in university, and oh my goodness me, my brain hurt. I remember my professor looking at one of my assignments and going, "You just got to the 60% there, didn't you?" and stopped. And I was like, "Yeah, my brain was hurting. Sorry, I couldn't." 60% was our cutoff for like a pass on that. So yeah, I just got as far as I could and went, "I can't. My brain hurt." Another one from Ethan. Yeah, if you aren't sure something's against the TOS, still report it. Let somebody else know. Yeah, thank you, Ethan. Our mods are fantastic. We've got automated tools to look for this stuff, but of course, any system is not perfect. But if you're not sure, report it, and we can have a look. And Ethan's absolutely right. If you're not sure, report it. A person can take a look and make a decision for you. I'm just going to stop on this, bring this point up. Day 88 is a project that uses Replit usernames and user IDs. Now you can get both of these things with REPL auth for anybody that uses your application. I don't think there are any security implications of knowing this information about a user, because literally all I need you to do is to check if that user has come back. I'm sure that some security expert can think of some real malicious way of using that, but we do give that data to you if you use REPL auth for anyone that logs in. So the question is really, should we be putting that stuff in secrets? And I would always say, if it's something you can get freely, if it's something that you're going to get hundreds of, because you could have hundreds of people using this particular app, for instance, it's probably not a good idea to put it in secrets, because infidel secrets are more of a manual thing. and they are really something that you should be setting as few as possible. And also, they don't propagate between forks. So if you are intending on sharing your work with someone, that's that. We've got another comment from Ethan here saying they could always consult the greater mod team. Yeah. Ethan is a great example of somebody that asks questions when he's not sure. You know, he's one of our lead mods on Ask, if not the original Ethan, if memory serves. And you know, he's brilliant. By the way, if you don't know Ethan, you'll meet him on the Ask forums. He's fantastic. He really goes out of his way to try and answer questions, but he asks plenty himself, and that's a good habit to be in. You know, we're all learners all the time in our lives, and especially in the world of technology, everything's changing all the time. It's important to be humble and ask. Well, I'll give the last word to Fuchsia there. Oh, thank you very much. Great. Well, Fuchsia, you're more than welcome every 2 weeks. I'm here to nerd out with the community and have a look. Ethan's clarifying for us. I'm the only one on Ask that's not a staff member. I think, yeah. I think that's right, isn't it? Ethan, again, brilliant chap. Go say hi to him in the Ask forums. He is well deserving of the credits. Does great stuff. And I feel like we're having a meeting of the minds. People are asking for like Discord contacts and stuff. Please do. You know, it's nice to have a community that gets together around interesting things and trying to help people out, and you know, remembering when calculators were bad. We're going to look back on this in 20 years time about AI bots and things like that as well. We'll go, hey, we're in schools and using them all the time as actual tools. So there we go. Right, well, I'm going to finish the stream up here today. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have everyone in the live chat chatting away. It's much more fun for me when everyone's interacting and we can have conversations that go a little bit left field, sorry. That's a completely different thing. Don't touch politics. When conversation goes a little bit left field, and we can talk about things like calculators being blocked or the horror of assembly language. It gets really into assembly language over the next 2 weeks. I'll love to see it, by the way. If you can work through that, Maya, I applaud you. Don't forget, we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday, same time, same place, to look at more questions to see if ChatGPT can help us out or if the community can come together and solve some problems. Thank you all for being there. And we'll end now. If I can find the link to the video. Yeah, there it is. Bye, guys. Waving awkwardly. Video plays.